Now, we've had a fun time, and I talked earlier about getting out of the bubble, and I like to think that one of the things we've done on the show this year is help people, our listeners, get out of the bubble, get out of the echo chamber through a little feature called the Chapo reading series. That's how I break out of my bubble. Is I read from intelligent conservative authors who I may disagree with them profoundly on many issues, but I still think it's good that you have to you have to respect everyone.
Hey, at the end of the day, we're all people.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, some of us are people.
Some of us are magic. Some of us are superheroes.
But
yeah, so what you're really saying is that it's important politically to hate read things that make you angry.
Yeah,
because
absolutely. I'm saying what you need to break out of the echo chamber, the bubble, is the right mix of sadism and masochism to expose yourself to things like we do. And to close out this year on the reading series, I'm dipping back in now to a little novel ripped from the headlines known as True Allegiance by Ben Shapiro. Fans of the show, you may remember we read from this during our election night live show. You can go back and listen to, I read from the preface and the first chapter. However, I feel like we should catch people up because many of you, it was probably too traumatic to go back and listen to that whole election night show. But I want to catch you up on this. Okay, this is Ben Shapiro's novel. It's a page-turning thriller ripped from the headlines called True Allegiance. I just want to read real quick now from this basically will sum up what the book is. This is from the review of it in the Independent Journal Review. It just summarizes, it follows these characters over the course of this frighteningly close-to-home narrative. The characters include Brett Hawthorne, a military hero who knows more than he should.
Yes.
Soledad Ramirez, a California rancher who makes herself an enemy of the state. Levon Williams, a power-hungry race hustler in Detroit.
Oh, my God.
Ellen Hawthorne, a top aide to a beleaguered border state governor. And Mark Prescott, a self-aggrandizing president, propel the sprawling story of a terror attack and its aftermath. Now, when we first read from this, just to catch you up, I read the preface, which is a description of a mother and daughter dying as the George Washington Bridge is bombed by terrorists and collapses on top of them. And then I read from chapter 1, which is Brett Hawthorne. And just to remind you, I just want to read this one of Shapiro's descriptions of the character Brett Hawthorne. Hawthorne was a bear of a man, 6'3" in his bare...
He was a bear, all right.
6'3" in his bare feet. Okay, bear of a man, 6'3" in his bare feet. This is excellent writing. And 215 pounds in his...
Hey, I'm hard. It's good writing.
This is exactly how all fan fiction starts.
He was a bear of a man, 6'3" in his bare feet, and 215 pounds in his underwear, with a graying blonde crew cut and a face carved of granite.
Now you know what you're jacking off to. Continue.
He had plenty of smile lines. He just didn't like showing them to people unless he knew them. This is chapter 1. Brett is behind enemy lines in Afghanistan, but then there's a long section where he reminisces back to his childhood, going to a predominantly black high school in the south side of Chicago, where a bully tries to get him to say the N-word, and he uses his clever wits to escape fighting. But he learns street smarts along the way.
Well, at least let him hear a little bit of how Ben writes black people. And
it's really good.
Wait, I'm getting to that.
I mean, it's like how Clara writes black people.
I'm getting to that. It's because it is incredible.
It is incredible. It's I still have not read my copy of it, but I'm looking forward to it.
I don't want to read it. I want to be surprised every time I get another fresh gem.
So we've already introduced the character of Brett Hawthorne. He's the youngest general in American history. He's a tough, take no prisoners, no bullshit kind of guy. Carved from granite, 6'3", slightly hairy, just enough hair.
Uncircumcised.
Okay, now I'm going to, like I said, every chapter alternates one perspective between these characters. So I'm now introducing in chapter 2, President Prescott.
What is with this fucking whack?
Sorry, the chapter heads look like the sort of like cutouts in a ransom letter. It's excellent book design.
That's how we know it's a dystopia.
Interior limo. President Prescott is smoking crack and having gay sex.
Well, yeah, you joke, but guys, you'll never guess who Ben has based this character on.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Chapter 2, Dateline, Washington, D.C. We simply can't pay for it, sir. White House Chief of Staff Tommy Bradley was standing over the president's desk in the Oval Office, a sheaf of budget papers in his hand. Crumbled, wrinkled papers covered in red notes. The numbers just didn't add up. And President Mark Prescott didn't care. Listen to me, Tommy, said the president. My re-election relies on our ability to secure funding for this action. You know that. I know that. The polls show it. We don't have a choice in the matter. Tommy gritted his teeth. He knew Prescott was right. The president had been dropping precipitously in the polls. His critics blamed his policies for widespread inflation and unemployment. Prescott was...
Oh, we had so much of that under Obama. The fucking inflation was crazy. I remember last time I went to the grocery store, I had to bring a fucking wheelbarrow full of cash.
Yeah, I mean, I actually have a secret family that I abandoned because of the budget deficit. It just made my life untenable. It's too hard to raise a kid with this deficit so out of control.
The podcast makes $30,000 a year, but in pre-Obama money, that's like 20.
Yeah.
Prescott was deathly afraid of becoming Jimmy Carter, and he was right on the precipice of having his worst fears realized. When Mark Prescott ran for president, he didn't know what he'd be inheriting. He was no babe in the woods. He was a hardened ideologue, a product of the Chicago machine.
A hard ideologue. A rock-hard ideologue.
The hand-picked protege of the power brokers. But he hadn't quite contemplated the nature of the country he'd be handed once elected. And then he goes on to just like basically rehash. His opponent, General Hart, had been a militant and boring old man. It also didn't hurt that his presidential predecessor had been an unpopular member of Hart's party. Again, this is Ben is like masterfully shading, what's going on with these characters.
What a creative mind.
Yeah.
I love how like before every line it's like, but he didn't care about the budget deficit. Right, then the next line is the president going, I don't care about the budget deficit.
This is a window into how Ben views the world, and this is what he really believes about the fucking deficit and shit. The president just said, I don't care that we can't pay for it. Just spend the money on
print more money. Make it bigger.
spend the money on the thing, which is how he writes it.
Now,
I need the money for this action.
Yeah, you don't know what he's funding.
Now, you guys joke, but this chapter goes on to say that President Prescott, he just knew he had to end his predecessor's wars, no matter the cost, and then spend all the money on like food stamps and big government programs. Literally, this is I'm not. This is almost verbatim. And then he's like, it's all about he's going to borrow money from China to create like a new deal, basically, and that's how he's going to save his administration. And then he's going to go. Okay, so he's going to go on TV to like announce the new thing. So the new socialist program that is not socialism. Wink. So it says Prescott always enjoyed this part of the process, the part where the pretty girl hovered over him with a makeup brush and her palette spread before her. He could finally relax. Everything would be on the teleprompter, and nobody knew how to read from a teleprompter like Mark Prescott.
Oh, yeah.
I also like, you know what? Fuck him for that. Fuck him for the fucking teleprompter thing, because I remember, all of us sensible libs spent 8 years being just infuriated by the teleprompter thing, because as we all knew, every fucking president in history used the goddamn teleprompter. But little did we know that teleprompter thing was slowly being internalized by the entire Republican electorate, because I cannot not believe that a big portion of the reason that Trump was so appealing to the mass of idiot Republican primary voters is that he clearly did not use a teleprompter.
No.
Yeah.
No,
if there's ever been the only politician basically in history who'd never used a teleprompter is fucking Donald Trump. And how many people watched him stammer through an insane stream of consciousness and thought, yeah, he sounds like his brain is degenerating from Creutzfeldt-Jakobsen. He does not have a fucking teleprompter.
How would you write out on a teleprompter like, folks, believe me, I beat Rosie? You wouldn't write out just that insane bullshit on there.
Sorry, just a little bit more before the tele. So he says, Mr. President, said Bradley, you're on in 2. Bradley shooed away the makeup artist, a hot number in her mid-20s. Exactly the kind of girl Prescott's wife hated.
Also, Prescott didn't like her because he was a gay homosexual.
As Bradley was about to push her out the door of the Oval Office, Prescott laughed. "Tommy, just calm down. We've done this 1,000 times," he said. "Let the young lady stay." Then he winked at her. She fluttered her eyelashes.
Just to be clear, Ben Shapiro's had sex maybe once in his life.
Yeah, I don't even want to say the full.
Yeah, he has one kid, therefore he had sex once.
He had sex once. He famously wrote an article bragging about being a virgin while he was in law school.
Is there a sex scene in this book?
Not yet. Not yet.
I bet it'd be
that
so
description
good.
of Brett Hawthorne was close enough.
President Obama
I want to
put his stuff in her ass.
I want to get to two more characters here. So real quick. So President Prescott goes on TV and announces that he's going to do socialism. Okay, so the next chapter is Soledad, and there's not that much that's funny in here to read from, but basically Soledad Ramirez is just like Ben Shapiro's version of Sarah Palin as like a white Latina, basically.
Yeah.
In this, she's a rancher from Central Valley, California, and like the government shut off her water or something, and she had to like shut off her family's farm and laid off the immigrant who worked for her. And then there's a description about how the immigrant who worked for her but like came here the right way, and she was trying to sponsor his citizenship, had to move to inner city Los Angeles, and his son Juan was killed when he wouldn't join a gang. And that's when Soledad is like, "I'm going to fight the government."
All because of the government's damn water rights.
She decides to fight the government and actually pulls off an act of domestic terrorism by blowing up some government office on the weekend, but makes sure very careful not to kill anybody. So but Ben is 100% in favor of this, which is funny. And then there's this
That's
like
what
sort
the
of
weathermen did.
This is exactly. Yeah, she's like a conservative weather gal. And there's like it devolves into this like Bundy Ranch style standoff between her and the federal government. Okay, this is the money shot here. We get to the chapter Levon. You'll remember from the description, Levon was the race hustler.
Yeah.
Okay,
also a great Elton John song.
Yeah. He just got back from the hip hop factory he owned.
This chapter begins. Detroit was a shithole, but it was his shithole. That's the way Levon Williams thought of it.
I want to hear more about guys' shitholes from Ben Shapiro, please.
He'd grown up in this shithole right near 8 Mile Road, a long stretch of street separating Detroit from Oakland County.
It's like a description from Wikipedia.
It gets better. Detroit was 85% black with a median household income of $27,000 per year. Oakland County was 77% white with a median income of $65,000 per year. End up on the wrong side of the street, and you could wind up carjacked, mugged, or beaten and left for dead. The emergency response time measured 25 minutes from City Hall to downtown Detroit.
Crib from Wikipedia.
Yeah.
So basically, Levon owns a barbershop that's a front for his crack cocaine dealership. I'm not kidding.
Oh my God.
No, this is great.
Crack, because the drug of choice in 2016.
Very
in
popular.
America
Well, no, Ben
is
acknowledges
fucking crack.
this. Ben acknowledges this. He says
Because he watched New Jack City when he was a kid. And it's never
no.
left
It said
his head.
Levon's shop was a barber shop. It didn't stick out on the road. The clientele was mainly older black men. The younger men didn't like to hang out there for fear they'd be sucked into Levon's orbit. But the older men knew what was happening in the community. More importantly, they knew where the bodies were buried, often literally. The clientele didn't spend a lot of money. Then again, they didn't need to. In the back room behind the swivel chairs, Levon and his crew shuttled crack cocaine. That drug had gone out of style in the mid-1990s thanks to the federal crackdown on crack dealers.
Say crack again.
The federal crackdown on crack dealers, and then like
That's good writing.
Excellent.
You use crack twice in one sentence like that.
And then he does an aside.
That's what we call bell-let.
He does an aside after the crackdown on crack dealers. He does an aside in Levon's character's head, I guess, or like in this omniscient third-person narration. Black politicians had been the biggest advocates of putting crack dealers on different footing than powder cocaine at the time. Nobody wanted to deal crack anymore, but Levon catered to a select population.
The hipsters.
Yeah, he's a boutique crack dealer.
Crack, ironically.
Pajama boy
Like
walked up
they
to
wear like New Balance and starter jackets and smoke crack.
They look like Adam from Cumtown, and if Adam Friedland and Pajama Boy walked up to Levon and said, "1 crack, please," Levon thought in his head, I get to blame white flight on racism when really it's the consequence of market forces.
Adam Friedland walks into the black barber shop and says, "Yo, it's your boy, young lesbian. Let me get that rock." This chapter goes on, and Levon strong arms like a local business owner. And he says, Crawford's eyes narrowed. "But I don't trust you now, brother. That's why I'm here." Levon's eyes suddenly cleared. He smiled wide. "There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so," he said. Now Crawford looked confused. Levon's smile never faltered. "It's Shakespeare," he said. "It means you'll learn to trust me." Crawford laughed, loudly this time. He looked at Levon curiously. "Quoting dead honkies," he twinkled. "You might be useful yet."
Dude, Clara Jeffrey wrote.
Honkies!
She's the ghostwriter here.
Does the word jive turkey appear in this book? I have to believe it does.
I like how they specified what everyone's eyes were doing.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
useful to me.
Fuck, I'm trying to find this one section where like he describes Levon, who's another big, chiseled, strong man with big hands.
Big warm hands.
Yeah.
What psychology is going on here that like all the male characters are like 6'3" and Ben's about 5'4"?
Wait, no, like
All the male characters are bears, while Ben is a twink.
Yeah, Ben's an otter.
It's an otter.
It's like
it's like a smaller, it's a kosher bear.
No, Ben is a fucking twink. Come on, he can't even raise to the level.
It's all the difference between a twink and an otter. All has to do with smoothness.
Yeah, well, I thought
the
it was about
hairier
hair.
you are. Yeah.
He's incredibly smooth. There's no
Ben is
smoother
totally
man
smooth.
than Ben
Smoother than the
Dreyfuss.
Kasich boy.
he describes Levon, but who also went to college. So he's like, he's a smart, educated brother. And then like he says, there's some line where Levon is like, he wasn't like the white conservatives that I debated in college. So like Ben inserts himself into this. He's like,
Oh, yeah.
Fuck. All right, let me see if I can find this.
He wasn't like the white conservatives I debated, who, yes, they were a little bit shorter than the average person. They made up for it with their intellect. And when they finally did have sex, it was better that they waited.
It's like that scene from the climactic wrap off from the Mr. Show sketch, where Professor Murder goes, "Damn, this science is too tight."
Okay, so wait, I just want to so this chapter ends up with a description of a Detroit cop named O'Sullivan.
Fuck off.
Patrolling his beat, just wants to get home safe to his wife and kids. I think Ben literally writes that, and comes across basically a 10-year-old boy. "Hey, pig," it said. The voice wasn't deep. It was the voice of a child. And the kid stood outside the door of the Quick Mart, legs spread, arms hanging down by his sides. A cute black kid wearing a Simpsons t-shirt and someone's old Converse sneakers and baggy jeans.
He definitely hit his head after watching New Jack City in 1991.
Yeah.
And then woke up, because this is some fucking vintage shit. This is not America in 2016.
A cute kid wearing the standard ghetto attire of a Simpsons hooded jacket with Bart Simpson, except Bart is black.
And it has like the Rasta colors behind it.
Yeah. And he's like, "Fuck off, pig. Don't have a cow, man." Is what the t-shirt said.
He
said on his hip, stuck in those baggy jeans, was a pistol. It looked like a pistol anyway, but O'Sullivan couldn't see clearly. And it basically, Ben goes on to describe where like this kid just keeps saying, "Fuck you, honky, get out of my neighborhood."
Honky!
Laughing at
A
the cop.
10-year-old saying
10-year-old
honky.
in a Bart Simpson t-shirt and Converse sneakers tells this cop, "Fuck off, honky." And the cop, O'Sullivan, is like, "Put your hands up. I don't want to shoot you. I don't want to shoot you, kids." And he ends the chapter with this guy gunning down a fucking 10-year-old in the Quick Mart. And then, of course, like the gun is like it was a toy gun, the tip orange plastic. For a brief moment, O'Sullivan couldn't breathe. When he looked up, he saw them coming, dozens of them. The citizens of Detroit coming out of the darkness, congregating.
boy.
He could feel
shit,
their
dude.
eyes.
Holding spears with bones through their noses.
Officer Ricky
Shouting, "Ooga
O'Sullivan.
booga booga."
Officer Ricky O'Sullivan sat down on the curb and began to cry. "Oh, wait a second. Oh, God, oh, God, oh, God," Sullivan repeated as he moved towards the body, the smoke rising from his Glock. He pointed it down at the kid again, but the boy wasn't moving. The blood seeped through Homer Simpson's face.
It was Bart, right?
The blood seeped through Homer Simpson's face, pooled around the
Oh
kid.
my God! Dan!
Pooled
How
around
do
the
you fuck that up? As William Hurt said one time.
The blood
the
seeped
film
through
Undersea
Homer
Gold.
Simpson's face, pooled around the kid's lifeless body. Duh-oh, O'Sullivan thought to himself. No, I just added that. That wasn't good. So that was that chapter. Okay, the last thing I want to read now.
By the way, that image is supposed to be poignant. This
Yeah,
is
yeah.
Ben's idea of poignant. This is also what he actually thinks happened in encounters between black people and the police.
Yeah, get out of here, Cracker, said the 8-year-old wearing a Space Ghost Coast to Coast helmet. Officer Potato O'Famine took out his broadsword and beheaded the child. Oh no, he said.
Fuck you, honky, said the youth wearing the Macmillan and Wife t-shirt.
Blood seeped out of Captain and Tennille's mouth.
The child's last words as his dying breath left him. Nanu, nanu, pig.
The blood pumped out of his femoral artery, just like the pumps on the popular brand of sneakers he was wearing. So, okay, I had to jump ahead to the next Levon chapter. And if you thought that like this shit was like the Turner Diaries so far, get a load of this. This is the next Levon chapter. Levon felt the air around him crackle with energy. It was something he had felt before, just before a fight. The switch that went on in his brain that notched the senses higher made him more sensitive, the adrenaline flowing through his veins, the feeling you'd burst from the inside out if the fight didn't commence, and right quick. This is because Levon knew that he wasn't alone this time. It wasn't him taking on some gang rival or him debating some white Republican club sucker at the U. So like I said, this is Ben inserting himself into this narrative.
Yeah. It wasn't getting decimated by his own.
There was going to be flames and blood and the struggle and power. This was going to
What?
be this was going to be death and mayhem and hope and glory. This
Penetration.
This is a Clash song, by the way. This is going to be fucking big.
So
All
big
Levon
and
needed
hard.
was the cue. He discussed the cue ahead of time with the Reverend. It would come on television during a press conference Big Jim had planned to hold with the mayor in the aftermath of the Kendrick Malone killing. The killing of another young, innocent black man at the hands of the racist white establishment. The police targeting a kid, an unarmed kid, for God's sakes, just because he happened to be black and happened to be out at night at the wrong time. The shooting had worked out precisely according to plan. Levon had one of his boys give little Kendrick a $20 bill to go and harass the cop.
Jesus Christ.
Kendrick,
Oh my
of course, thought it
God.
was just a piece of good, clean fun. Messing with white cops was a rare joy. Made you feel like more of a man. And with all the big boys telling him how he'd be a boss in the neighborhood if he baited the cop, he'd been enthusiastic. He probably looked forward to coming home and telling his buddies how he told that cracker-ass pig to go to hell and stared at him right and cursed. Okay, like I said, this book that Ben Shapiro wrote is the fucking Turner Diaries.
Yeah.
It really is.
this is-
Like,
yeah.
No, the Turner Diaries was well written.
yeah.
Yeah, the Turner Diaries had a way more exciting plot. Like there's nukes and stuff.
And again, just to reiterate, in Ben's sick mind, he believes that black communities orchestrate these murders of their own
Children.
Children, yeah.
Like this all works out great for them. Like what does he
Yeah.
think the end game is of this scheme
Dude.
is?
They get to buy.
Well, the President Prescott just is like, I'm so sorry your child was killed by the cops. Here's federally subsidized crack cocaine for your neighborhood.
We are sorry that this totally unexpected killing happened. We are going to double the deficit in little Kendrick's honor.
I didn't read, but I would bet dollars to donuts there is a moment where President Prescott says, if my son had a friend and he was black, he would look like Kendrick Malone.
Oh, guaranteed.
honor-
That will happen.
In honor of Kendrick Malone, we are killing the ambassador. at the embassy. One white life for one black life. We are going to spread the wealth around. If you like your ambassador, you can keep it. He just gets all the I consider Detroit the 57th state. Gets all the Obama things in there.
He said as he put the glass pipe to his mouth and filled his lungs with sweet, smoky crack.
Wow, that crack sure gets the taste of a man's dick out of my mouth.
Okay.
This got me so high, I can't wait to kill a fly.
But so I'm so glad we're ending the year on this reading series. I just have two more quick hits from this. This one is from the President Prescott chapter where he argues with the rough and tumble governor of Texas who's called Bubba Davis.
Hell yeah.
And he
Yeah.
goes, fuck. I don't have time for this
You can't
bullshit.
fuck with Governor Shithead Malone.
But no, Bubba Davis is a good guy. You know, he's a self-made man who, like, you know, got rich and been making a new kind of oil derrick.
Is his belt buckle described in this
No,
chapter?
it's not, because Ben isn't a good enough fucking writer to do that.
Governor Bubba was best friends with the famous conservative writer, the football retard.
So he has an angry phone call with Governor Bubba Davis, who's like, "You send me the troops now. I need to secure my border. The cartels are killing people down here."
And then he spits into his spittoon
Yeah.
and it makes like a noise. And
then President Prescott says, like, "I don't have time for this bullshit, Bubba. You cross me, and I promise you'll see the inside of a cell for a very, very long time." Then he hangs up on him. This ends the chapter.
wait,
This
he's under arrest for wanting to secure his border?
Yeah. He's like, "Damn it, Governor Davis! If you try to enforce the Constitution, I'll put you in a goddamn cell."
This is exactly like Decker.
Yeah. So he hangs up the phone on Governor Davis, and it says, Prescott buzzed the intercom. "Marissa, get me Jazz." That was his nickname for Jasmine Jacks, the national security advisor, his longtime political mentor. He could hear her sexy fingers manipulating the phone.
Sexy fingers.
Valerie Jarrett is like 65, dude. What the fuck is wrong with you? Valerie Jarrett is like a fucking grandmother.
If you don't fuck as an adult, I guess you just like fetishize the weirdest things.
Yeah.
Oh man, I bet she has all types of nail polish.
Oh my God.
here's
All right,
a
this
God,
is
her hair
the-
helmet is
Oh
so
God,
fucking
she
hot.
just has the dangly bracelets. Oh.
Okay, this is the last selection from True Allegiance. This is another Brett Hawthorne chapter, and Brett has come across some intel, some documents that are so hot.
The documents? Oh, you're telling me that he has come across documents of importance?
Yeah, he's come across documents that are going to blow the lid off fucking President Prescott. Are you ready
Fuck
for this
yeah,
one?
dude.
It said Brett knew what it meant. Brett had known of the CIA's discovery of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq for years. Everyone on the inside had known. The media had reported that the government had lied. That somehow all the world's greatest intelligence agencies has been dead wrong. But that wasn't the case. Hussein smuggled some of those weapons out of the country into Syria. Others had been buried in the desert. Beneath those coordinates, these are the documents. And now they were in Iran.
Hell yes, dude.
Thanks to
You mean the country? Wait a minute. You mean the country that Iraq fought like a 10-year quasi-genocidal war against?
Yeah, that country.
Well, there's a term in Islam.
Of course, they're going to give them those weapons.
Well,
Makes
there's
sense.
there's a term in Islam when you pretend to fight a war against another Muslim to fool the kafir. Yeah.
Sorry, this is the last line of the chapter, the last line I'm going to read from True Allegiance. They were now in Iran. Thanks to Ambassador Beauregard Frederick Feldkauf. Ambassador Beauregard Frederick Feldkauf. Feldkauf, you son of a bitch, Brett muttered. You sold us out.
Damn you, Fauntleroy McGillicuddy.
I can't believe it. I opened up my mission document to secure my assassination target, but Ambassador Stevens Fauntleroy Knickerbocker just is a copy of the Quran. And it says in Arabic, which is what they speak in Iran, it says, what difference does it make?
So I said, I think like True Allegiance is definitely now in the Chapo canon. I want to dip back into this. I need to see where this thrilling narrative takes us.
I think we should record.
I am deeply invested in the fate of these characters.
Gotta say, Levon, that's a breakout character.
Yeah. I can't wait till they make a movie of this.
You
It's
thought,
gonna be amazing.
you thought it would be
Totally.
like Colonel Harddick or whatever, but no, he was Levon.
No,
Levon's the best character.
Levon put those weapons in Iran. That was him.
He's like, I can't wait to blame the war on racism.
No, but like this is the perfect example of like how conservatives think like fiction and narratives work, where they just like these chapters are like the size of a Chinese menu, but in each one of them they cram in every fucking weird grievance and like mythos that they built up
Just
in their head.
Wikipedia facts about census tracts. It's the worst fucking right.
And we're just going to go to an easy well, which is back to Ben Shapiro's rip-roaring thriller, True Allegiance.
Yay.
We had such a good time riffing on this earlier in the day, so I figured let's just go back to the text. And,
All right,
Okay,
let me.
Well, wait. It occurs to me that we've only ripped on True Allegiance in premium content. So for
you're right.
freeloaders, you might want to give them a little context.
Wait.
What the fuck True Allegiance
Was that premium
is.
content?
Yeah.
It was Cat's episode.
Yeah, that was premium.
No, that was the last free one of the year.
That was free. That was
it
free.
was free. But like,
You should do a recap regardless.
It has been a while. Okay. If you guys, President Prescott, he just got done swatting a fly in a bathroom where he's sucking a guy's dick in the 57th state. Levon he just made a new hip hop factory that forces homophobic people who own a bake shop to make them make Black Lives Matter gay marriage cakes. Mm-hmm. And the white Latina lady. We just introduced
Soledad Ramirez. Her ranch is under siege from federal SWAT team. Brett Hawthorne, the youngest general in the United States military, who is carved from granite with just enough hair to just enough hair is what I'm talking
This
about.
trail of hair leading down when he's shirtless, and it's just so subtle.
vascular, thick.
He just realized that Ambassador Feldkov sold us out, goddammit, before passing out and being taken prisoner by the Taliban.
Also, Will, correct me if I'm wrong, but we also have a news peg for Ben Shapiro, late breaking one.
He's 5'4".
Oh no, that's not news.
Oh, yeah, that's not
no,
news.
I mean he
established.
injected himself in the healthcare debate just the other night.
Yeah, the reason that we were riffing on True Allegiance is because Ben Shapiro had a tweet where he was quote tweeting Bernie Sanders, right? And he compared receiving health care to buying luxury furniture. And he was like, well, if you can't afford, I can't afford a nice sofa. Like, why? I don't have a right to it. Why should you have a right to health care? Crazy.
Unimpeachable logic.
He'll get that height surgery one day as soon as he saves up enough money in his piggy bank. But let's dip back into True Allegiance, okay? Like I said, last we saw General Brett Hawthorne, he's been taken prisoner by the Taliban. And now I'm going to read now from we didn't actually read from this character yet, but there's a character named Ellen who is Brett's wife.
Who is a lesbian talk show host who normalizes sexual pathology?
No, the exact opposite, Matt. She is a loyal and faithful wife, but also a close aide and advisor to the governor of Texas, Bubba Davis, who we last, I believe, heard in an angry phone call with President Obama. Prescott.
Yeah, he had the phone call with Prescott where he was like, I demand troops to secure my border to defend the Constitution. And President Prescott goes, I will call in a drone strike on you if you defend the Constitution at all. You hear me, son?
She is a loyal conservative wife. When her husband went overseas, she threw her computer in the Rio Grande so she could not be emailed.
He got so mad, Bubba Davis got so mad hearing the evil president sell him out that he pulled his 6-shooters and fired them into the ground and rose the feet off the ground.
Okay, so this chapter I'm opening now. This is from Ellen's perspective. This chapter, Brett had lost weight. Funny that would be the first thought to cross Ellen's mind when she saw him on television, but it was. He was always so self-conscious about the 4 or 5 pounds around his midsection he couldn't shake. What he liked to call the famed Hawthorne underbelly. That had to be gone. He looked gaunt. That jutting jawline she loved to kiss Looked like skin stretched taut over bone. He looked like death. That was her first thought.
Well, he really paints a picture with his words.
Okay, the first sentence in this chapter is Brett had lost weight. Funny that was her first thought. It closes that paragraph. He looked like death. That was her first thought. Her second thought.
It's great writing and excellent editing.
Her second thought was this could not be happening. Her man, the man she'd married and who had cared for her and who had provided her strength, to whom she'd given her entire life, a man she had never questioned about his honor, even
sexuality.
The man she had never questioned about his honor, even when the front pages of every major newspaper in America smeared it with a knife to his throat. So basically, Brett Hawthorne is in an orange jumpsuit on his knees, Taliban knife to his throat, and he's been in a terrorist video.
What is the media reporting? Like, had it coming.
Yeah, they're like, that's what he gets for joining the army instead of selling crack with Levon.
He's guilty of being an apostate.
Yeah. The media is Salafist.
I just want to read. So it goes on. She's watching this video, and just her heart sinks because she knows her husband, and she knows that he will never negotiate with terrorists, even with a knife to his throat, even if it means his death. Ben writes here, of course, it wasn't exactly natural to have a knife to your throat. And that's what the network showed over and over on a loop. Brett on his knees in that orange jumpsuit with a man swathed totally in black. His face wreathed in material.
That's excellent.
Run it back.
Yo, DJ, run that shit again.
His face wreathed in material.
Right, Bart, L.A. Damn, son.
With a man swathed totally in black, his face wreathed in material, a knife in his hand.
That is the worst sentence I have ever heard in my life. There's no other way to put that. You've already said that he's covered in black. You can't add the face without saying, oh, there's a material on his face as well.
He's covered in fabric and he's got product.
He sucks so
in his
bad.
hair.
Lieutenant General Buck Hardcock was standing in a place.
The prose really only sings when he is taking the position of a woman or a neutral third party, like appreciating the male figure. Like it's at those.
The only thing he's able to describe is a chin.
Yeah, the prose really sing.
Here, another bit from this chapter that I had to highlight. This is another listen to how this sings. She had seen the end of videos like this before. The first installment represented the threat. The second installment invariably represented the fruition of that threat. The jagged trunks of human beings, the sawed-off heads that looked too much like a horror movie and not enough like real life. I was going to say, this is the only research Ben did for this book, was just watch ISIS beheadings to get this description. She couldn't
even
cry.
then, he might as well not have bothered because he's still totally lifeless and worthless as a description.
So it says she couldn't cry, not yet. She went to work as usual. She showed her guards the ID, and they waved her through. 2 knocks on the door, and she stood across from one-time Republican presidential candidate and 4-time governor Bubba Davis. After a stint in Vietnam back in the late 60s, Davis, a big bear of a man,
Ooh,
and
interesting choice of
Another bear of a man. All the men are bears.
I'm sorry, did you say fun-loving?
When are we going to get an otter of a man? It's inevitable at this point.
Governor Davis was never a glory hog. He had a glory-shaped hole in his heart.
Governor Davis played it straight. He would never crank the American people's chain.
So she's in a meeting with Texas Governor Bubba Davis, who's fed up with President Prescott and the damn federal government. And he just wants to let his border guard do their damn job and shoot Mexicans without being called racist rednecks. And he says, we're finally going to do something. And then they go back and forth, and he's going to do something. Moving along, that's Ellen's chapter. The next chapter is back to Soledad Ramirez, who's, like I said, the Sarah Palin Bundy Ranch character, but also a wise Latina. Listen to this line.
Ben, the term is Latinx. Do better.
So her house is under siege by a SWAT team, and all the shit is about to hit the fan. Listen to this line. What do you take with you when your entire world is about to burn to the ground? She'd come to the Central Valley as a girl, grown up dirt poor, watched her father make his living in the dirt. But instead of running from the dirt, as he always was, dirt. She made her living in the dirt.
Dirt never changes.
Yeah. So she made something from nothing, and basically in this chapter, a SWAT team guy has a crisis of conscience and like breaks rank and warns her before they're about to raid. And she's able to escape before the federal government comes with the assistance of more burly men riding motorcycles and attacking a SWAT team. Yeah. Well, as Matt pointed out, and if you go back and listen to our episode with Kath Barbadoro, where we read from the first couple chapters, one of his first descriptions of Brett Hawthorne is that he's also a bear of a man. So they're all bears.
Yeah, they're all bears. It's a bear's world.
Unless you're President Prescott and you're a twink.
Yeah. I like how so Ben has this inherently dramatic scene of a man about to be beheaded, and he spends 3 paragraphs about that, and then talks about Governor Borderwall.
Yeah, he had been cut once before at his birth, but
see, I think that this is actually going to be a deeply dialectical work, where we're presented with the thesis of the bears. Bubba Davis and Hawthorne, and then the antithesis of the twink, President Prescott. And from that conflict will arise the synthetic character of the otter.
Matt,
who will rise
there is a
above
third
them both.
way. There is a third option. There is a third type. And that is the buck. And I'm talking, of course, about Levon. You'll remember him as the race hustler who orchestrated the shooting of a small child to start a race riot back in Chapter 4. Let's check in on what Levon is up to. He's now at a rally to protest the shooting of this young boy by Officer Celtic O'Malley, the good cop who just wanted to go home but was told that Kraka, I'm gonna bust a cap in your ass, and he just had to shoot the kid.
They're at a reverse racism rally. They want to kill Officer Bennigan because he killed little Kendrick Malone with a broadsword.
Mm-hmm. So they're at a rally. And it says here, behind Levon stood a solid 3,000 of his fellow Detroiters, mostly young black men. Levon had sent out his boys to round up the crowd, and they had had an easy time of it after the media coverage. Facing the crowd, protecting the statue and platform set up just before it, stood about 100 cops. Levon noticed a particular lack of weapons. He smiled to himself. He says, if they were too well behaved, the media would dismiss them. A bit of blood got them hot under the collar. A bit of blood made the story hot. Run that back, DJ. A bit of blood got them hot under the collar. A bit of blood made the story hot.
This is fucking NaNoWriMos. There are NaNoWriMos.
The way the media worked, the only way they'd pay attention was if somebody did something extreme. And then they'd defend the action. Blame it on an overriding anger at an unfair society. Levon knew a few of the journalists from U of M. They'd done the same thing back in their university days. Made them feel good about themselves, less ensconced in white privilege. Levon had his men ringing the edges of the crowd, ready to prevent any non-approved persons from getting too close to the media members. And by that, in Ben's mind, I think he's thinking like the African-American grandmother who's just being like, I want to talk to the media about how the cops are good.
Yeah.
They're doing their job.
In Ben Shapiro's mind, teenage Black Lives Matter protesters have the instincts of highly paid fucking AstroTurf publicists.
Well, that's what they are. It goes on here. No footage of fools, he'd promised the Reverend, and he intended to keep his word. Tonight, Levon intended to be the face on the news. Already, he'd done his best Malcolm X impression. Early Malcolm, not that late stage Islam means peace, pussy shit.
Okay.
Run that back. Run that
back.
His best Malcolm X impression, early Malcolm, not that late stage Islam means peace, pussy shit.
A lot to unpack here.
I'm just impressed that Ben wrote the word pussy.
Yeah. Wow, good for him.
Now, when I was previewing you for this, I said that there was the introduction of a mystery character that we hadn't met yet.
Ooh.
So I thought we had met all the main characters in this story. No. Ben saves until about a third of the way through the book the reveal of a fifth character.
Oh, is this who I think it is?
Okay.
This character's name is Mohammed.
Oh.
Yes. Yes.
Dateline: Tehran, Iran. Now this.
Thank you for specifying it was in Tehran, Texas.
Well, it's in Tehran, Iran, and the setup to this is that General Brett Hawthorne, rather than having his head sawed off by like the Taliban or ISIS, was shipped to Iran because they are in cahoots with the government of Iran.
Knew it. I mean, this is called Takaya.
Yep.
It's what the Shia, the worst kind of Muslim, does. And it's where they pretend that they're being slaughtered by ISIS.
But that's just a front.
It's just a front. They're like
all those videos of like big ditches full of Iraqi soldiers.
They had 500,000 crisis actors gassed in Iran.
Yeah, dude, they're like Livan. They're like Shia race hustlers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like there's an Iranian Livan who's like, don't give me any of that don't give me any of that takfiri shit, yo.
Okay, so this is from Mohammed's perspective. He said, America has fallen. The transformation from Dar al-Harb to Dar al-Islam has begun. Mohammed watched, transfixed. Ibrahim Ashami's eyes glowed brightly, as they always did when he was excited. It was a peculiar quality that attracted many of his followers. They saw in that glow a fiery hope, warm and consuming. Hope for a new world. The teacher, they said, brought hope. Today's attack has ensured the crippled and weakened infidel giant that was the United States will never rise again. The emptiness and degradation of that perverse country has been wiped away, and the glorious reign of Allah has begun. Those that rejected Allah followed vanities, and Allah has destroyed them. I know this is audio, but I have a single finger in the air as I'm reading this.
I mean, this is the only good thing he wrote. Like, I agree with all of this.
Wait, is this just how they, like, these are, like, Iranian government guys, and this is how they kind of talk?
Yeah, that's how they talk to each other,
No, this is, no. Ibrahim Ashami is not an Iranian government guy. It goes on. A drop of sweat rolled down Ashami's craggy face and embedded itself in his scraggly beard.
Craggy?
Craggy, scraggly. Ashami had lost weight in his 3 years in the mountains of Tora Bora, but he was finally putting it back on now that he was ensconced in his complex in Tehran. The government had granted it to him out of gratitude for his prior efforts against the great Satan.
Oh, so he's supposed to be like Mullah Omar.
Yeah, like pretty much. Except Iran is putting them up.
Yeah. Even though Iran, like, we cooperated with Iran militarily in the first days of the Afghanistan.
Well, it says Tora Bora, yeah.
Yeah, because there's a large Shia minority in the south. Yeah,
well, Felix, you'll like this. It says, out of
too.
gratitude for his prior efforts against the great Satan, with a yearly stipend that enabled him to live comfortably. In return, he had assured them that any efforts he put forth would be directed at non-Shia targets. It was a minor concession from him.
Yeah, that's, I mean, if there's anything about, about Wahhabist terrorists that they are fine doing, it's to stop targeting Shia. It's not like that's their main thing that they do. It's also not like Iran was one of the first countries to, offer condolences for 9/11.
Has Iran ever done a terrorist attack against the United States?
No.
There was a Marine barracks, but that was
Hezbollah.
That was a military. That was a military target.
They were fucking combatants. That's not terrorism.
But it's also like, we don't really know how many Shia have been killed in the last 4 years by Wahhabist influenced
tens of
terrorist
thousands.
groups.
It's got to be tens of thousands.
Yeah, but according to Ben, it's just this is just race.
Well, that's the thing. None of these morons can get their heads around the idea of Islam as not a monolithic enemy. Like the idea that there's any kind of real conflict within it. Like they can't, because it defies their smooth-lobed understanding of the world. I remember I read a friend of my father-in-law self-published a 600-page novel called The Devil's Playground, which was basically sort of a Clancy knockoff, very similar to Ben's book, about this attempt by it was written in the 90s. Saddam Hussein and Yasser Arafat to do terror attacks across the United States to destroy the U.S. electrical grid. And then while America was totally thrown into darkness and chaos, Saddam was going to launch nuclear weapons at Israel. That's the plot of the book. and it's about as well written as the Ben book. But I will always remember this amazing moment from the book that just told me how what these people's understanding of the world outside of their like narrow image of it really is. He says, I'm paraphrasing, of course. It's been a few years since I read it. He says, Arafat then unleashed his most ferocious and fanatical fighters against America, the Shia. Like, the guy thought that like Shia Muslims were just like extra Muslims. Like you had regular Muslims,
they're like the Navy SEALs,
and then
of
you've got
Islam.
Shia Muslims who are like samurai ninja Muslims with like extra like Muslim power.
Well, yeah, that's actually
that's how they think of it. That's how all of them think of it, including a guy who thinks he's smart, like fucking Ben Shapiro.
If you watch a video, stolen dollar videos, every country, every culture has them. But if you watch them from the Middle East, it's all guys pretending to be a Shia. And the guy goes up to him and goes, "Do you know the people have died to wear that uniform, sir? Is your Mahdi hidden, sir?"
I think you guys are taking Ben a little too seriously here. I just want to give... so basically, Ashami is basically his Osama bin Laden character, who's now the guest of Iran.
Yeah, of
where
course.
Iran is letting him do his terrorism and keep General Brett Hawthorne and his chiseled chin hostage. I just want to read one quick description here. It says, Ashami pointed at the camera. Mohammed, his youngest recruit, an attractive boy of 17, struggling to grow a scraggly beard. Again, just check off scraggly, craggy. This is the third time he's used scraggly to describe someone's beard in about 1.5 pages. So basically, Muhammad is Ashami's errand boy, and he's sent off to meet an agent of Russia because, as we've said before, they can't let... This book is 165 pages long, and Ben Shapiro is going to be damned if he doesn't fit every fucking conspiracy theory and grievance in his addled, childlike brain into every fucking page. So Muhammad goes to meet an agent of Russia called Andre at a cafe that Ben describes as... like the only westernized cafe in Tehran that plays Western music, okay? He says he just wished Andre would show up already, even if this was a safe spot. He was getting sick of listening to the Western-style sinful music blaring over the speakers. What, he asked himself, does it mean to hit me baby one more time?
Are you serious?
Oh.
That was 1998.
Well, I mean, Alex, it's Tehran. They're a few years behind the curve on sinful Western popular music. What does it mean to be bad and bougie? Mohammed thought to himself.
Oh my God.
Are they threatening to rock the Casbah? Pursuant to what Matt said earlier, I think Ben does know the distinction, but he hates Iran so much more.
Yeah.
But I don't.
Yeah.
I never understood why that was. I know you explained it to me once, Felix. Because Iran's like a huge Zionist.
Because Iran is an actual like threat.
They
Iran
think
and
they
Hezbollah
know
could
that
beat
Iran
Israel
is-
in a fight.
Yeah.
Well, it's an old like weird.
They've kicked
deep-
the shit out of Sunnis for the last 50 years. They're not afraid of them at all.
Well, it's a weird old deep state thing, and there is this like sort of grudge within the national security blob against Iran and against the Shia, and this tendency to think of the Shia as this massive blob, monolithic blob, which they're not, but. And it's because Hezbollah attacking the barracks in Lebanon, and it's also because Hezbollah capturing the station chief in Beirut, William Buckley. No relation to the sailboat guy.
Sadly.
Different William Buckley. And they cracked Buckley, and he revealed a ton of secrets, and they humiliated them. And then, Hezbollah humiliated Israel in 2005.
So you're just saying Hezbollah just keeps cucking Israel?
It keeps cucking like the Saudi, Israeli, American.
We would say that like Ben Shapiro is like a hog for humiliation.
Yeah. And so like Iran is his daddy Dom, and he has to keep taunting Iran.
With their scraggly beards.
This is just the last section I want to read from here. This is the meeting between General Hawthorne and Ibrahim Hashimi. Welcome, General Hawthorne, he said in a clipped accent.
What?
Brett's captors...
The famous clipped accent we know and love.
Brett's captors forced him to his knees. He felt them hit stone. Then he felt a sweaty hand remove the blindfold. Before him stood the world's most well-known terrorist since Osama bin Laden, smiling. I hope you weren't too mistreated on your journey here, Ashimi said, turning his back to him. We wouldn't want a famous war hero victimized by, how did you put it in your interviews? Barbarians? Brett kept his mouth shut. He knew how this would go, and he knew the taunting presaged something far more frightening. Instead of listening to Ashami's monologue, Brett quickly scanned the room for tools, anything he could use. He almost didn't notice when Ashami turned his back around, thrust his face just inches from his own. Brett could smell his breath. General Hawthorne, Ashami said, I know you, and that you are a resourceful man. I also know your country is a paper tiger, and that your president is a weakling. Weaklings watch as the world burns around them, thinking they are safe because they have a mirror, and they are lost in the reflection. This is why your country will lose.
We call him President Selfie.
That's like Thomas Friedman levels of mixed metaphors. Like the paper tiger in the mirror, and like, what else was in there? There was like a Joker quote.
Yeah.
Like watching the world burn.
He's Islamic Joker, and I guess he thinks America is weak because President Prescott probably made a speech a week before where he's like, we're weak. We will not stand up to Islamic terrorism. And I have to go on a limo ride right now.
I just want to see her.
I'm gay.
I'm on my way to a pizza place.
I just like he says, thinking they are safe because they have a mirror. Ben Shapiro.
What?
Ben Shapiro thinks President Prescott is a parakeet, basically. Finally, Brett spoke. America doesn't lose. We just convince ourselves not to win. You're the ones who will lose. We don't have to tape beheadings to frighten people into joining us. I think he plagiarized that from the movie London Has Fallen.
Yeah, it was a way better line in London Has Fallen when he goes, 1,000 years from now, you'll be fucking gone, and we'll sit like that. It had pathos.
We don't have to tape beheadings. We just spent hundreds of billions of dollars in our poor kids' money on death fucking drones.
Well, listen to Ashami's response here. He claps his hands in delight. Oh, you Americans, you don't understand at all. You're delightfully out of touch. And I mean delightfully until you start dropping incendiaries on our children. You spend your lives fat and happy, eating at McDonald's. While you sleep, while you watch your reality television, your children abandon you, no matter how many Patriot missiles you send against us, no matter how many American troops we have to bury in the sand. You see, we offer something you do not, a reason to die.
Patriot missiles. When the fuck did he write this? That's some fucking Gulf War I shit.
Yeah, I also like how
he was like 10 years old when that happened.
How doesn't really fit with the Never Trump brand to be talking shit about McDonald's and reality TV.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, I'd like to point out that Ben's like Islamic boogeyman his criticisms of the current situation sound pretty much exactly like Ben's.
Yeah.
Like this guy's about to say like, and you let sickos go in the bathroom with your children at Target.
No, he pretty much does. He says, down deep, they are afraid of dying without that death meaning anything. They are afraid they will die and that a life of playing Xbox and watching your American movies will leave them empty when they meet their maker.
A life of going on Twitter.
That's why one of these guys I give credit to is D'Souza, who literally said, like, yeah, the radical Islamic guys are right about why America is bad. It's guys kissing on TV. Like,
it sort of sounds like it sounds like an alt-right guy. It sounds like Mike Cernovich or something.
Yeah.
Well, horseshoe theory, baby. It's true.
Well, that's the occultation of the Mahdi. The Mahdi actually turns into a gorilla that doesn't jack off.
Your children take Prozac, and they are not taking nootropic drugs that expand your reality.
America is a paper tiger. Iran is a great gorilla. America keeps jacking off. Iran has not come anymore, and no one in our country needs shampoo.
Your children are fat, and they eat at McDonald's and not Applebee's, where they would learn something from an influencer.
That's the last thing I cap from this reading series, but I just like to describe what happens eventually. Is as the chapter goes on, and again the chapters are about 2 pages each. But Brett, he tricks you.
That's Dan Brown style.
Yeah, he tricks you.
Trying to make it like compelling.
Ben tricks you because at the end of this chapter, it seems that Brett has agreed with Ashami to do a terrorist propaganda video. And you're like, no, Brett.
General Hawthorne, stand down.
No,
He is
Brett.
no longer a bear.
And then in the next chapter is from President Prescott's point of view, and he's in like the situation room, the same situation room that President Obama and Secretary Clinton watched the Osama bin Laden raid on, as they like send a team into Iran to retrieve Brett Hawthorne. And they were able to do this because Hawthorne, he tricked his captors by blinking the GPS coordinates to where he was being held on camera.
They don't understand how Morse code works.
He blinked the GPS coordinates to where he was being captured in Morse code. Ladies and gentlemen, he's rescued, and then in the next chapter, he's in New York City. The book moves at a lightning pace.
How did he know the GPS coordinates of where he was?
Oh, that's funny because Ben did say that he was brought in blindfolded.
Well,
Okay.
Every U.S. Army Marine,
Marine, Army, Navy general,
SEAL, pilot,
quintuple general.
yeah, is when they wake up, they like center their GPS and they just start counting every step they take. So they thought they could get him by blindfolding him. But
Wait,
nope.
I forgot about this. So Brett Hawthorne or whatever is a general?
He's the youngest,
Youngest
Marine
general.
general, in American
and
history.
I guess he was like fucking in the front lines and he gets captured.
He goes
and,
from-
and President Selfie Stick is like, well, he was a bad general?
He was an attractive bear, but not my type.
Has an American general ever been captured in a war in the past 100 years?
No.
So that's this week's reading from True Allegiance, the Rip from the Headlines thriller. For those of you people who bought this book, also bought the Turner Diaries.
I need more of this. I'm excited for installment 3.
Like I said, I don't want to give too much away at the same time. I wish there could have been another good Levon chapter, but
Next time, let's go back to Levon.
yeah, Ben tones down the race hustling in these past chapters. Levon did have that very good line about no more of that Islam is peace, pussy shit.
Will, I promise you, the race hustling like goes into overdrive in later chapters.
Oh,
I bet it does.
yeah.
How far are you in the book? Halfway? Or
I'm about halfway through.
Oh, are you reading it too?
I skimmed it after we did the first reading series, looking for more of those erotic scenes about scraggly beards and jaws, and it's a little late night kind of reading.
Yeah.
Seems like a common theme is guys who can't grow facial hair. Every time someone's mentioned, it's like how you can very clearly see their chin or their facial hair is craggy or scraggly or crappy or whatever.
Again, I'm just like, we noticed this in the first reading series, but like, I just love his tick for just repeating words and phrases over and over again.
The dirt thing.
The dirt thing was bizarre.
And it didn't even make sense because it's like, wait, what, did she make her fortune as a dirt farmer?
Yeah, there
What
are
the fuck are you talking
humble
about?
dirt farmers on Naboo.
Yeah. I think Ben's next project should be to write conservative Avatar. Like the President Selfie Stick makes a space empire, and they go to a planet where everyone's a conservative.
I think Ben's
and people
next-
go to the right bathroom.
Here's Ben's next project. Dear Dabiq Forum, I never thought this could happen to me.
You know what we should do is we should look up those Goodreads reviews of Ben's book. I think I read you guys some of those off camera. Because his book did, like, how did it do? Did you ever look up those
Actually, I
statistics?
did. I didn't find out the numbers on Ben's book yet. But,
Because I think, if his publisher won't go for more, I think we should just pay him to write more because this is great.
We could write.
well, actually,
an entire
I think that's
series.
what we should be doing. Actually, is writing our own True Allegiance.
The vast majority of the people listening to this right now could write just a way better book in like 1 month's time.
Easily.
No question.
But like in the same way that incorporates like every conservative bogeyman of the last 10 years into a thrilling narrative.
So I bet at the end of the book, like President Prescott, of course Hawthorne's never in any real danger. He of course gets back through like resourcefulness and
No, he's already back. He's in New York.
Great.
It happened in one chapter.
Great. Anyway, so yeah, he gets back and he probably goes to like all the characters come together to like arrest the president because that's such a conservative fantasy. And Prescott, like, he turns to the Marines. He's like, "You're not going to save me." And one of the Marines goes, "After you saluted me with a latte." Like, they're all in there, all that shit.
So Tim, like I said, we love Decker, and another thing we've been doing on the show, it's sort of a a running theme now is we have the reading series, right, where we read these horrible articles and books by people, and the longest running reading series we've been doing. It's now been over 3 episodes, and I think we'd like to bring it back here with you now. Is the ripped from the headlines thriller "True Allegiance" by Ben Shapiro.
Yes.
Are you familiar with?
This is by Ben Shapiro. Yes, I heard one of these already.
Okay,
On your show.
so you're already familiar with Ben Shapiro and True Allegiance.
Yes.
At the very end, there's sort of the climax where there is a confrontation between General Brett Hawthorne and President Prescott that, is basically ripped from Decker, not from the headlines. Yeah. So I'm gonna read to start out, and then hopefully we can we'll get the hang of it. But just to update listeners, where we laughed less, our heroes, General Brett Hawthorne, a bear of a man with a chin like a slab of granite,
uncut.
Yeah, 6 feet, uncut, daddy. He's just been liberated by special forces from. He was being held by Al Qaeda's Tehran branch, and he's been liberated by the special forces, and he's now free again. And I'm going to begin here where he's talking to his wife Ellen Hawthorne, who is the chief of staff to Texas Governor Bubba Davis, who's sending the dang troops to secure his border, no matter what the president says.
Previously. President Prescott threatened to throw Governor Shedhead in jail for protecting his border.
Yeah, and he's not going to stand for it. But this is now. I'm going to read it here. This is the reunion between Ellen and Brett. The phone rang. Ellen hastily checked her bedside clock. It read 7:56 a.m. She'd overslept. She'd taken a sleeping pill to calm herself down after the president's speech. The determinedly cheery ring continued. She leaned over, picked up. Ellen Hawthorne, she said groggily into the phone. It's me, baby. Involuntarily, tears sprang to her eyes. Oh, God, you're all right. Brett. We don't have time, baby. I'm here. I'm fine. I can't tell you where I am right now for security reasons. We're not in American airspace yet, but I need you to call Bill. She immediately snapped to attention. Brett didn't need the loving wife right now. He needed the partner. She'd put on that hat so many times, it sprang to her without delay.
You could almost say that she put on the beard.
I need you to conference in Bill. He'll know. Why can't you call him directly? I can't explain. I'm your only call. They're monitoring it. You got it. She scrolled through her cell phone until she came to the name Bill Collier. She dialed.
That's how I also find people on my phone.
She dialed. On the first ring, General Collier picked up. This is Bill.
Fuck you. This is crackling writing, by the way. I'm on the edge of my seat.
This is Bill. Bill, this is Ellen. I've got Brett on the other line. I need to conference you in.
Hell yes.
Do it. She put them on the party line. Okay, she said, we're all together. This is, like I said, I'm glad he had this dialogue to let you know how the conference call turned out.
Brendan, can you actually put this in the show now when we're figuring out Skype and shit? Take a cue off Ben.
That's literature.
Glad to hear you're alive and kicking, kid, said Collier. Thought you'd bitten it that time. Bill, I need you to get your boys on something. I need them to find a known associate of Ashami. His name's Muhammad. By the way, they're doing a conference call because the call is being monitored, and I guess the implication here is once you go on conference call, they're like, "We've lost it."
President Prescott is listening on the other end, and he's like, I was going to listen to them talk to Bill, but I have to go eat dog."
So he goes, "Right, I'm on it. I'm looking for a guy named Muhammad. Done." He says he's coming.
That's easy. That's not a common name at all.
Well, General Bill Collier says that's like finding a guy named Juan in Mexico. But so they get off the conference call, and this is the tearful reunion between Ellen and Brett. She says, "Are you okay, honey?" Ellen asked after she knew Collier had clicked off the line. She could hear him sigh audibly. "I don't know, sweetheart."
Well, I hope so.
I don't know what I'm doing here.
She wouldn't have been able to hear him sigh if it hadn't been audible.
"I don't know, sweetheart. I don't know what I'm doing here, why I'm doing it, what they did to my guys in Afghanistan. I know, sweetheart. I know. Ellen, I wasn't supposed to live. That wasn't the message I gave. I blinked airstrike, not tactical mission, not rescue, airstrike.
He's like General Brett Hawthorne is like Nick Mullen. He learned Morse code just because he thought it would be funny to learn it.
Yeah, Tim, the backstory there is that General Brett Hawthorne was about to be executed in a terrorist ISIS video, but he blinked the GPS coordinates in Morse code of where he was, and then airstrike with it. And
wait a minute. So he's mad at the pussy president for not killing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
He let a Shami get away, goddammit.
I'm sorry, are you saying a shaman?
A Shami is the name of the Iranian Taliban Al-Qaeda agent.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just one last detail from this chapter. You'll remember in the prologue to this book features a mother and child being crushed to death when the George Washington Bridge is blown up by terrorists. Now the narrative has caught up to that atrocity, and it's already happened. And this is a great line from Ben here. She says, she glanced at the television. The rescue crew was pulling another body from the water. A young girl wearing a Disneyland sweatshirt. Ben has this knack for...
That's a callback. That's good writing.
Yeah.
Ben has a knack for including details about the clothes people are wearing that are just...
Like that Homer Simpson shirt.
Yeah.
Black Youth was wearing when he got shot.
Mm-hmm.
As Officer Starren Bilson accidentally put the kid in a wheat thresher, his apu was turned into bits of confetti thrown out of the exhaust.
But I just like that additional detail about the little girl's body, and she had a Disneyland sweatshirt on. It's just that added touch of innocence being just violently rendered from this world.
I do not know what a Disneyland sweatshirt looks like. That's just like saying, the child was wearing a children's shirt.
The child was wearing jeans with embroidered on the back, I hope I never get killed by Islam. I'm 8 years old.
I was just going to add that, this is bad, but it's not Homeland bad.
Yeah. Tim is right. In Homeland, the terrorist literally would be named like Quran Jihad Muhammad. And
conveniently living next door to Carrie or whatever. We were watching that's the one thing I was watching when we were doing the last season of Homeland. We're doing Decker. I was like, this isn't that different.
It's not fucking different at all. It's not different.
There's fucking like 8 people in the world that everything that happens in the world kind of flows through these 8 people, and they're always like in the room together and stuff. And that was inspiring to me.
Carrie, the biggest terrorist in the world is renting your downstairs basement as an apartment, and due to international law rules, you can't arrest a tenant.
You should have maybe Decker could have a bipolar episode, a failed suicide attempt, and then we'll just get right back on it while sleeping with the head of Al Qaeda.
Yep.
So now we're checking back in on Brett Hawthorne. This is after the George Washington Bridge has been blown up by terrorists. He says, Brett surveyed the damage from the top of a nearby parking lot. It stretched before him like a diorama, unreal in miniature, too dramatic for life.
That's, God damn it, Ben. It's so fucking bad.
And then, wouldn't you know it, Bill Collier, his wife Jennifer, and their daughter had been on the bridge. And Ben writes, they still hadn't dredged up her body.
Oh, my God.
Bill had been married to Jennifer for a long time. He'd also lost his daughter and her Disney World sweatshirt. No, I just added that. It said he'd also lost his daughter in the attack, an 8-year-old he'd called his little trooper.
Wow, Ben can really paint the picture of the tragedy. I feel like it's my loss.
And he could tell that his friend Bill was craggy, and he'd aged a year and a day and no longer looked like a bear of a man. He looked like a mouse of a man.
Bill was circumcised by the tragedy.
He looked more like an otter of a man now.
Yeah.
Down from bear.
So Bill Collier says, then he told Brett he'd be like the president would be personally ordering him to New York City. The president won't like that, Brett said. Tough. My patience for bullshit goes out the window after I watch them search on television for my daughter's body, said the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I'll make whatever excuse I have to make. I want to know who's responsible for this, and right now you're my best lead. You're the only person who's seen this Muhammad. You've seen a picture of this Muhammad.
You are the only person who has gone to the Charlie Hebdo offices and seen the picture of Muhammad sucking a dick labeled Les Politiques.
Could you, if you remember what he looked like, could you possibly draw a picture of Muhammad?
So, like, General Bill Collier, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, whose wife and little trooper has just been blown up on the George Washington Bridge, has now ordered Brett to sort of like go off reservation and use racial profiling to investigate the terrorist attack. So he says, Bill is now at JFK. Get over to JFK. They'll be waiting for you. The airport felt like a mausoleum, completely empty, completely deserted, utterly quiet.
Great writing.
Great writing again. It's my job to be repetitive. Being repetitive is my job. Listen to this analogy here. Simile. The planes sat at their terminals like sleeping grasshoppers.
Sleeping grasshoppers love like staying at terminals.
So like he goes to the Port Authority security team and he's like, show me all the Mohammeds you've got. And he said after realizing there were too many combinations of flight to check every itinerary and every manifest, Brett finally dispensed with the politically correct pleasantries. Jim, he'd said to one of the officials, I want to access the customs files. If you don't mind me asking, sir, muttered the official, is there somebody we're looking for particularly? Brett said, yes, an Arabic-looking young man.
Arabic is the language.
An Arabic-looking young man.
Yeah.
The official hemmed and hawed. I'm uncomfortable with that, sir.
I need a safe space.
Oh boy, profiling.
That's racial profiling, sir. You're not doing the profiling. I am. Well, now I'm a party to it. Brett stared into his face. I don't care. Just do it. Sir, it's against regulations, though. Look, Brett burst out, losing his patience. I don't give a rat's ass at this point about whether it's racial profiling or not. Maybe you're right. Maybe Muhammad is a light-skinned Norwegian woman or a Cherokee elder. Or maybe he's a Persian or Arabic-looking son of a bitch who hangs out with other Persian and Arabic-looking sons of bitches who look like Ibrahim Ashami. If I end up being wrong and he looks like Helen Mirren, feel free to call the New York Times editorial board.
Oh, hell yeah.
Jeez.
So, yeah. Brett Hawthorne really taking care of business there, Tim.
I like how when they said Brett Hawthorne was going to dispense the politically correct niceties, I thought that meant that he was going to put on blackface. He was conducting the search.
He puts on olive face and goes, "It looks like this," pointing at himself.
Yeah.
Tim, like now having written, I'm putting that in quotation marks, whole seasons of Decker and then performed them. What is it like to hear Ben Shapiro writing this book completely sincerely?
Oh, it's a little sad, I guess. I mean, he's probably excited about it, but it's hard. I mean, it's hard to write stuff that's good, that's great. And he's doesn't seem to be very good at it, but it takes a long time to even do this. So it must feel, I don't know what do you think his friends
I could
tell
do it
him?
in a week.
You think I think there's stuff that I do that my friends probably don't think is that great, and it never really comes up,
I was looking at some of the Goodreads reviews of this book from fans of Ben Shapiro, and one did say something along the lines of, Ben Shapiro is an idol of mine. I love everything he does, but he just wasn't meant to write fiction. The next chapter, President Prescott has to address the nation, in the crumbled ruins of the George Washington Bridge. And he's very concerned. He's put all his best speechwriters on it. He has his crispest, clearest, best teleprompter that he's reading off of. And in the middle of his speech, a voice cried out from the back of the crowd, "You did this!" Prescott was momentarily startled. Then he began again. The voice again. "You did this, Mr. President!" A murmur carried through the crowd. The voice continued. And suddenly, a few of the cameras swung around from facing the president to the lone protester. It was a woman, overweight, wearing faded jeans and a T-shirt with holes in it, her hair chopped short. "You did this, Mr. President. My husband is at the bottom of the river because of you, Mr. President." I like that he describes that she's overweight and wearing a shirt with holes in it.
Well, she's an authentic working class person. That's what he thinks they all look like. Like because he was born wearing pleated slacks, so he doesn't actually know what like regular people look like. So he just assumes that they're all walking around looking disheveled in clothing that they like picked out of a dumpster.
Everyone in the crowd is wearing Jankos, except for President Prescott.
So Prescott, being the smooth talker that he is, manages to turn the situation around and pull it out of the bag by being very inspirational and eloquent about how love is the answer.
Classic Prescott, baby.
Classic Prescott. So, speaking to the point of the weird racial agenda in this book, there's another chapter where there's another character who's sort of a Sarah Palin-esque militia member and rancher. And then the plots converge because her and her motorcycle gang go to Detroit, Michigan, where there is, in Ben's words, a lynch mob outside the holding cell where the officer Ricky O'Sullivan is being held, the one who shot a 10-year-old boy for dissing him. And they show up to the rally wearing T-shirts that say "Fight the Thugs."
Wow.
It goes on like that, and this takes us to the beginning of part 3. And now, Tim, I sent you 2 screen caps of this, and I was hoping that you could read the scene where General Brett Hawthorne confronts Mark Prescott in his hotel room.
I'm reading Brett.
I'll be President Prescott. Okay.
Okay, cool.
You have got to be kidding me with this. I'm trying to hold the country together, and you're out there fucking supporting the enemy by targeting Muslims? How am I supposed to counter the accusations? Brett sat on the couch watching the president rage at him. On his way to the hotel, the Secret Service agents had been utterly silent. They refused to answer any of his questions, give him any information at all. But Brett had figured that they must have picked up Hassan as well. How else could they have found it? Prescott continued to yell. I elevated you. I made you. I saved you. And this is how you reward me?
Oh, you didn't build that.
Brett could feel the anger building. He flexed his fist, then let it go. An old trick Ellen had taught him to take his mind off his temper. It wasn't working. It wasn't working. Tell me. I expect an answer. What were you thinking? I gave you your life back.
No. I signaled you. I told you to hit the building.
Prescott scoffed, disbelieving. You can't be serious. You wanted me to start a war with Iran after Iraq and Afghanistan? We just finished blowing the troops out, for God's sakes. We got you out, didn't we?
That was the goddamn point. The point was that I had intelligence that said Ashami was there. My life for his. That was my trade to make. I just needed you to do your damn part, and you chickened out, as usual.
I could toss you out of the military for this, General. Prescott's eyes were steely blue dots in a puffy red field. You've gone too far this time.
Go ahead. I'd love to tell the press just what you did, because you couldn't keep this country safe. You weren't willing to make the tough choices, Mr. President.
Prescott went quiet for a moment. Then oddly, he smiled. Well, I'll make this tough choice, General, at least for you. You can either walk out of here and stop this nonsense, or you can keep going. If you keep going, I'll instruct my Attorney General to draw up federal charges against you for violation of Imam Omari's civil rights. And this time, there won't be any sending you to Afghanistan.
Mr. President, I would think not. You lost that country, so there wouldn't be much to send me to, would there? I just want you to think about this, Mr. President. All those people out there would be alive today if you just followed my advice. I'll tell that to every camera I can find.
Holy shit. Prescott reached down to the coffee table and picked up the remote control. He flipped the channel to CNN, where the anchors continued to gush over Prescott's big speech. General, I can afford a few public relations hits right now. Rally round the flag effect and all that. You'll be seen as an ungrateful rube looking to hit back the man who saved you. Your time is over, General. Now get out of my sight.
I understand our enemies better now, Mr. President. You're not a very credible bluffer. Wow.
You're right. I'm taking this wholesale. I'll take it. I'll take it all.
He turned his back and slammed the door behind him. Oh my God.
I think the next season we're bringing on Shapiro as a
head writer.
Consultant writer.
So good.
Yeah, head writer.
We have these like fake credits in Decker, and there's one we're cutting right now. We've added this one episode inspired by a speech by John Voight.